Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 2, 117. Mr. Door's description. Mr. Door. This naming style is very similar to mine. I wonder what was the real name of this pathetic fellow who was lost and trapped in the deep darkness amidst the storms, and what his sequence is. Or rather, just as Emperor Roselle had guessed, he's one of the evil gods or devils. Klein let out a silent chuckle which was mixed with ridicule and self-deprecating humor. He was also interested in the history of the Fourth Epoch. I know of the most famous war of the four emperors in the Fourth Epoch, but the specific details and the main figures involved are limited to the information spread by the major churches. For example, the Black Emperor of the Solomon Empire. It wasn't until today that this so-called Mr. Door finally answered my questions by letting me know who the remaining three emperors are. The half-insane Blood Emperor of the Tudor dynasty, the Night Emperor of the Truest Empire, and the Emperor of the Underworld of the Southern Continent, also known as Death. According to Mr. Door's description, in this war that changed the situation of the entire world, the Black Emperor, Blood Emperor, and Night Emperor fell one after another. The Emperor of the Underworld reaped the greatest benefits. Having said that, Mr. Door added with profound significance that after over a century of digestion, Death went mad, but he also became stronger. Therefore, Death teamed up with the primordial demoness and brought about a pale disaster for the northern continent. Of course, this isn't something he witnessed personally, but rather something that he hears when he comes close to the real world every month. Death went mad, but also became stronger. Even deities can go mad. What a horrifying sentence. However, this also confirms my guess. Before the Fifth Epoch, those deities would often descend into the real world, directly interfering with the situation in the northern and southern continents. They might even personally appear, just like Death. I asked Mr. Door if he had participated in the War of the Four Emperors. If so, what role did he play? And what was the position the seven deities maintained in this war? What role did they play? Mr. Door didn't answer my question. He only said in a teasing manner that the number of preeminent mighty figures in the Fourth Epoch far exceeds my imagination. In addition, he also mentioned two laws. One is the law of beyond characteristics indestructibility, and the other is the law of similar sequence beyond characteristics conservation, which is consistent with certain things that I have learned from that most secret and ancient organization, and also from some of the phenomena I have observed. This can lead to many interesting conclusions, making many explanations, take on other forms, making one's mind tremble in horror. For example, when there are too many high sequence beyonders in the same sequence pathway, the low sequence beyonders would reduce and vice versa. The beyonder characteristics had been fixed at the source. It will not increase or decrease. Does this mean that there really is a God who created all the deities, an omnipotent and omniscient God, and everything originated from him? This was the longest Roselle diary that Klein had ever seen. It took up 2 full pages, and one could imagine that it originally came on a double-sided page. It only became 2 separate pages after repeated copying. That's a lot of information. Klein sighed silently. As a history student who had graduated normally, he had always believed that the Solomon Empire, the Tudor dynasty, and the Transoist Empire came one after the other in a line with a certain degree of restoration before a new political outcome was established. To his surprise, the War of the Four Emperors described by Mr. Door clearly and unambiguously revealed one thing. All 3 empires had existed at the same time. If this were true, then it would really overturn most of the current research on the Fourth Epoch in the field of history. Klein suddenly thought of the original Klein, who was filled with interest towards archaeology and the history regarding the Fourth Epoch. Today, I've helped him achieve his wish. I wonder if Death had already become a true deity during the War of the Four Emperors. It's hard to determine according to Mr. Door's descriptions. I can only first assume that the Emperor of the Underworld, who had obtained benefits from the War of the Four Emperors, had broken through his limits and become a deity. But he also went mad as a result. To have a deity go mad was truly terrifying. Just thinking about the details makes one tremble from the bottom of their heart. It's no wonder that the knowledgeable Emperor Russell would use the word horrifying to describe this matter. Could it be that the so-called evil gods were crazy orthodox deities? Would that mean that there might only be evil gods left in this world one day? Man, does this mean that the end of days cannot be stopped? Klein smiled to hide the growing solemnity of his emotions. He felt that the future he imagined was filled with a dark gray hue. At the same time, he raised his evaluation of the Black Emperor, Blood Emperor, and Night Emperor, believing them to be the preeminent mighty figures who were close to being deities. Perhaps that means sequence 1 is the peak existence of a single pathway. According to this logic, for Black Emperor to live for centuries or over a millennium wouldn't be unacceptable. That would explain the original Klein's confusion. He had obtained contradictory findings from the content recorded in the Antagonist family's notebook with his own mentor's viewpoint. He believed that the Black Emperor was the common name used by every emperor of the Solomon Empire. Perhaps the Black Emperor had always been the same Black Emperor. Of course, other possibilities cannot be eliminated. For example, they could have been replaced 2 or 3 times. But is the name of that pathway sequence 1 Black Emperor? I wonder who Mr. Door is in the history of the 4th epoch. Emperor Roselle didn't go into detail when describing his erroneous experiments and accidental coincidences, making it impossible for me to even try to converse with that Mr. Door. The laws of beyond characteristics indestructibility and similar sequence beyond characteristics conservation shares the same description as the one used by the captain. Perhaps the term he used came from Emperor Rosell. According to the 2 laws described by Mr. Door, we can indeed deduce a lot of interesting speculations. For example, with there being so many holy artifacts and high-sequence beyonders in the 7 churches, there shouldn't be many low-sequence beyonders. But this contradicts reality, and the only reasonable explanation is an additional gift from the deities. For example, is the destruction of the nation of the Evernight due to the conservation of characteristics that the mere possession of resources causes it to be in trouble? Or could it be said that their existence seriously weakens the potency of the Evernight pathway and threatens the position of the goddess? For example, theoretically speaking, certain sealed artifacts could also be used as the main ingredients for potion materials, or they can even be considered equivalent to potions. Of course, the prerequisite is to remove all latent dangers and madness. No wonder the documents that were unearthed called the 4th epoch, the epic of the gods. So it turns out that in this epic there are many records of deities descending. Then what caused them to stop coming to the point of there not being any revelations? If it wasn't for the fact that Beyonders received responses from ritualistic magic, perhaps many of them would have doubted the existence of the deities. Many ideas came to Klein suddenly as he felt that he had delved deeper into the realm of mysticism in this beyond world. He flipped through the next 4 pages and was disappointed to realize that they were no longer related to Mr. Door. His ability as a clown allowed him to conceal his emotions well, and coupled with the gray fog's obstruction, even Audrey, who was secretly observing him, didn't notice anything amiss. He gathered his chaotic thoughts and started reading the 3rd page of the diary. September 10th, I've endured it for a long time, but I still can't help but complain a little. I must have had F***King She**T for brains to choose the savant path, right? Of course, this has indeed allowed me to develop my greatest advantage, allowing the church to attach great importance to me. But the problem is that the first few sequences lack any beyonder powers needed for combat. I can only make do by relying on mystical items and rely way too much on external items. For example, sequence 9 Savant only has extraordinary abilities in memory, learning, and practical skills. For example, sequence 8 Archaeologist gains a strong physique and corresponding ancient knowledge, and they can only barely apply some ritualistic magic. For example, sequence 7 Appraiser, whose ability is to quickly identify mystical objects, allowing them to avoid hidden dangers to the greatest extent. For example, sequence 6 Artisan, who can produce machinery, wonder but not very powerful, beyond objects. Apart from that, one standard in ritualistic magic will be enhanced. It's no wonder its modern name is Machinery Specialist. Comparatively speaking, the Sequence 7 Warlock and Sequence 6 Scrolls Professor of the Mystery Prior Pathway are sufficiently tempting. It would be great if only the Church has the complete sequence and that the Hidden Sage doesn't exist. However, I finally received some good news. After I advance again, I'll gain beyond powers for combat that I can call my own. Sequence 5, Astromancer. Its modern name scares me a little. It's actually called Astronomer.
Its modern name scares me a little. It's actually called Astronomer. Am I going to end up as an all-powerful mad scientist? Heavens have mercy on me. I was only a second-tier student at the college entrance examination. It had to be said that Emperor Rosell had a strange talent for making jokes. Even the recently dispirited Klein couldn't help but twitch his mouth, wishing to light a candle for this senior. Study hard and improve by the day is indeed a wise saying. He lampooned and remembered the unique trait of the Church of the God of Steam and Machinery. They lacked beyond their powers when it came to combat, but they were good at making and using items. After flipping to the third page of the diary, Klein continued reading. June 2nd. The kingdom has created chaos again and again, instigating wars without being able to completely destroy the Fac Empire, the Lone Kingdom, and the Fana Kingdom. As such, the kingdom has no choice but to shoulder huge debts, and its economy is on the verge of collapse. From my observations, the people, merchants, and soldiers are very dissatisfied. The riots are just lacking a spark. This is my chance. But I have to be very careful. The Sauron family has witnessed the history of the Fourth Epic and is an ancient family with a high possibility of having high sequence beyonders. I need the support of the Church as well as gain a tacit agreement with the Church of the Eternal Blazing Sunday. I can't appear immediately. First, I'll let the rebels destroy order before I end it all as a protector. Consul Rosell Gustav.